Now, Dylan Mortensen locked herself in her room after seeing the masked man and waited almost 8 hours before calling 911. However,
whoa,
yeah,
hold on.
And the internet was tearing her up over this.
Anyone would. What do you mean you locked yourself up in a room and didn't call 911 for 8 hours? Did you go to sleep? Did you like just chill on your phone thinking this was gonna be okay? Like, I'm so confused.
Yeah, but so a lot of people were confused, and I'm not gonna lie. When I first heard it, I was like, "What?" But Brianna Fox, the investigator I mentioned before, explained that it's common for people to freeze up in shock during traumatic situations. But I mean, freezing up for 8 hours is like kind of egregious. But we've also covered another case, the Morgan Metzer case, where when the Batman intruder broke into her home and then tied her up and then put her on her back porch with a pillowcase over her head, and she couldn't see or hear anything, and was told not to move until she hears a car honk 2 times. She was out on that back porch for 40 minutes. But when she described it to police, she said that she felt like she was only out there for 15 minutes, remember? So a lot of people who study crime scenes and talk to victims and investigate crimes have said before that, like, most people assume that when your adrenaline gets pumping that, like, time would move slow. And that's true. Yeah. Your time moves slow for the victim, but it's still moving at normal speed in actual time.
I get it, but I still don't understand how that turns into eight, like 45 minutes, 15 minutes. Okay, that's understandable.
Yeah.
8 hours?
So I actually have a timeline that can also kind of go towards why it took 8 hours. But I'm not going to lie. This timeline when I go through this timeline, I look at it and I go, still, what the hell? Right? Like, I still have a lot of questions.
Carelessness.
Because, okay, let me go through this timeline. At 4:12 a.m., it is confirmed that Xana received a DoorDash delivery.
Okay.
There's also evidence to show that she ate her food that she got. Now, remember, the crimes happened. The investigators believe that the stabbing happened between 4 and 4:25 a.m. 4:12 a.m. it is confirmed that Xana received a DoorDash delivery. At 4:17 a.m., security camera audio captured that. Now, security camera audio, there's a security camera that's about 50 feet away from Xana's bedroom.
Right.
And it picked up audio, and it picked up like whimpering or crying voices, and followed by a loud thud and barking by Kaylee's dog. Now, at 4:22 to 4:24 a.m., this is when the survivors, Dylan and this other girl who's named in the court's documents as BF, they start exchanging text messages back and forth. And their text messages was, Dylan texted BF and said, "No one is answering. I'm really confused." And BF said, "Yeah, dude, what the F?" Xana was wearing all black. Dylan then says, "I'm freaking out. And no, it's like a ski mask almost. I'm not kidding." Then at 10:32, the survivors texted one of the victims and said, "Are you up?" At 11:58, that's when the 911 call is made, and they say that they have an unconscious person, and they're talking about Xana. And that's when police go there and they discover the crime scene. They discover 4 people that's murdered.
What I don't understand is what do you mean she's unconscious, but she was stabbed to death?
Exactly.
You're not going to see the blood or the stab wounds?
Exactly.
That's confusing.
So that's the part that gets confusing.
You're either really careless.
But mind you, these text messages were just released not too long ago, like maybe about a month or so ago. So, and remember, there's still a gag order on everything.
That's true.
Until court starts. So
right.
we're going to get a lot more clarification on all of this. But between them being able to see the killer, give a description, but the killer not harm them, and then also these text messages, and then also what they said when they called 911, considering how brutal the crime scene was.
And then not just that, the time difference between when you saw the person and then when you called 911 is a huge time gap. It's too big to be like, yeah, you were nervous. Like, you guys were clearly doing something else or fell asleep. Like, that makes no sense.
Well, of course, they did go to sleep, but...
What? How do you sleep?